to explain all about HDPE tubing. So HDPE tubing stands for high density polyethylene. It's just a little bit different than polypro and some of the other tubings that you might have heard of before, and here I have some samples. So this is just a natural tubing color. They do make HDPE in lots of different colors. This is just your basic natural HDPE. So I have 7/8, 3/4, 5/8, and 1/2 inch. And there are other sizes too that go, out of this range, obviously for different applications, but for hooping, we pretty much stay in between these 4 sizes. Basically, these fractions mean the diameter of the tubing itself is that much of an inch. So 7/8 tubing is 7/8 of an inch. It's almost an inch thick. So this is a thicker tubing. It's great for beginners. I personally love it for on-body hooping. I have one right here that I love to practice with. It's a little bit thicker. It's not quite as heavy as PE or irrigation tubing that you might see at Lowe's or something like that. So it's less likely to bruise you. It's not as dense and heavy. So I love to recommend this for people who are just starting out because it's great for on-body, and it's not so heavy that you're going to have a really hard time doing isolations and things like that. Okay, so 3/4 inch, you guys are probably pretty familiar with 3/4 inch tubing, or maybe you've heard of it. So 3/4 inch HDPE is 3/4 of an inch. So it's a little bit smaller than 7/8. It actually fits inside of the 7/8. I can get it in here. So the wall of the tubing is, I guess, like a 1/16 of an inch or something like that. So each size that goes down fits inside the other one. So say you have, for example, a 7/8 hoop, I would use a 3/4 inch connector inside of it to hold it together. So 3/4 the next size down. Really good for intermediate hoopers and advanced hoopers, even beginners sometimes, just kind of an all-around great size. 5/8 of an inch, a little bit, the next size down, fits inside of your 3/4 tubing. So this is 5/8 of an inch. So it's larger than 1/2 of an inch, but smaller than 3/4. So this one, I love this size of tubing. It's great if you have smaller hands. I can fit my pointer finger or my pinky finger inside to kind of give you guys an idea of how big it is. You can obviously also look at a ruler. So usually for 5/8, I'll recommend this for someone who might want to size down, get something a little bit lighter than their 3/4 hoop. Great for doubles. And then we have 1/2 inch. So I don't sell a lot of 1/2 inch HDPE, but it is out there and available. This is what I use as inserts on my 5/8. So this is actually 1/2 of an inch in diameter. Really tiny. It's about the size of my pinky. I can't fit my pinky inside. Inside of this is 3/8 of an inch. So I have to use really teeny tiny connectors for these. 1/2 of an inch is kind of more of a, particular feel. I think a lot of people like them for doubles and things like that. Some people like them for on-body. For me, I like them for quads and things like that because I have kind of smaller hands and they just fit in my hands a little bit easier. It's a softer tubing. It bends. It doesn't crack or shatter like polypro might. So, and you can see how this is here. I can bend this and it'll retain its shape a little bit more than polypro, which usually bounces back. So I can even straighten this out, but you have to be careful because, like I just did, you can kink it. So that's the fear, I guess, with your HDPE, is that it can kink. If it does kink, you can take some like pliers and go perpendicular to the kink and kind of press it in. You can kind of press it out, but you wouldn't want to put any more stress on the tubing after that, so I wouldn't coil down a hoop or something if it has been kinked. So as you can see, HDPE will kink and bend instead of cracking. See that? HDPE is also, since it's just kind of a softer tubing in general, it's less brittle. It makes it a lot more tolerable to the cold. So these are great for the winter if you want to hoop outside or something like that. They'll tolerate the cold a lot better than polypro. However, since it is more malleable in the heat, your HDPE is going to warp a lot faster. But since it is malleable, it is very easy to bend it back into shape. So if you want a hoop that you know you can always bend back into shape, anything goes wrong, HDPE is a little less finicky than polypro when it comes to that. So generally, if there's something weird about your HDPE hoop, you can kind of bend it back into shape and kind of force it. I generally recommend HDPE to, well, anyone. It's a great tubing, but definitely beginners and intermediate hoopers. It just kind of, it reacts slower because of that kind of softness. It will absorb shock, so when you screw up or something, say you're working on brakes and you screw up, it doesn't, react as fast, and it's not as obvious when you do mess up and kind of absorb the shock of hitting it the wrong way, if that makes sense. I love them for on body. It's just kind of this nice smooth feel. The weight difference in the tubing is totally minuscule. In polypro versus HDPE. HDPE might just be ever so slightly heavier, I think just because of the makeup of the tubing, but really when you're thinking about HDPE versus polypro, don't think about weight. You need to think about your flow and what works. I recommend HDPE for people who have a slower, softer flow, people who aren't into really fast breaks, people who really like on-body hooping. That's what I would recommend HDPE for. So I hope that helped clear up some questions you might have about HDPE. If you have any more questions, feel free to drop me an email. You can check out the FAQ page on my website, emmitthoops.com, and I hope you guys enjoy, and check out the polypro video coming up next.